Hi Capricorn, welcome to your July 2020 love reading. It's Verena here, and this is for anybody who is single or who is in a relationship that they are not happy in. And this is coming from a perspective of, self-awareness and self-empowerment, self-growth, personal growth as we call it. July is when there's going to be a lunar eclipse in your sign, which means that the sun is opposing it in the opposite house. Now, that would mean the 7th house of committed partnership. So that could be a trigger point for personal, one-on-one relationships, committed partnerships. That could be like a time when you realize something that you need to do. In some cases, it may be to stop doing certain things that hurt the relationship. So I'm not just putting it on the other person that they're the one that has to change. Maybe you have to change. When you have a lunar eclipse in your own sign, that can speak to letting go of something, some type of behavior, some type of pattern that may be keeping you from the kind of relationship that you want. So maybe this is reflected in some of these cards, because we have, it's very interesting, we have 2 cards on the top row that are both 10s, and 10 can be the end of a cycle. And then right in the middle we have the card that represents new beginnings, which is the Ace of Swords. In this case, the beginning is coming from gaining clarity on what it is that you want in life. In other words, you're not kind of like flip-flopping, not sure of what it is that you want to have, and that I have to tell you, I have the windows open, and for whatever reason, it's not rush hour yet, but people are starting to come home from work, I think. So sorry about that, and it kind of made me lose my train of thought. But the bottom line is that when you are not really sure about how you feel regarding a relationship, or if you're single, regarding exactly the type of person that you want to be with, it can lead to, I think in Law of Attraction, Abraham Hicks calls it wobbling. And it means that you're kind of like unstable, uncertain. And the Ace of Swords is gaining that mental clarity, which is really a part of what Law of Attraction is about too, is being able to pursue something with a sense of being clear on what you want, not kind of just flailing. I think Capricorn is pretty good about that, though. I think that you're a very centered type of person, typically, but it may be that I'm thinking more of in your work life, your career objectives. Perhaps there are areas in your life where where you don't have the same kind of clarity. So if that's the case, then that has to be worked on. And in the past position, we have the 10 of Pentacles. This is a card of family, money. I'm not going to get into that angle, but I would say that idea of the generations. Okay, so, and also just money itself. So let's say you're in an unhappy marriage, but if you got divorced, either you would have to give some of that money to your partner, and you might be saying, but I had the business before I even met him or her, and that's not fair to me. And so you're kind of a little bit unwilling to do that. Or you may say that about, or the other person, that you, like, if you are married and you don't want to break up the family, that could also be the case, because Capricorn tends to be a traditional sign. And so the idea of generations is very appealing to a Capricorn, typically. Obviously, there might be some outliers, but typically you like this idea of having children and grandchildren and just that perpetuating that whole thing, and you don't want to break that up, or and which is silly because that would never get broken up, but you like that idea of the lineage and all that stuff. And so that may keep you in a situation that is not really happening, is not really good, that might be toxic. The higher message is the 10 of Swords. It's realizing that you've been betrayed so that you can be free. And I think too with the Ace of Swords is that you're changing your mental construct so that you can create a new narrative that isn't something negative connected to possibly changing your life in this way. Where if you decide to let go of a marriage, for instance, you're doing so to honor yourself. You're not breaking up any family. The family will always survive, and there will always be continuity there. But you're choosing to honor yourself. And the 10 of Swords also, being a card, being that the number 10 is the end of a cycle, it means something has ended, and that is kind of mirrored with the lunar eclipse in your sign, and that you have to be graceful about accepting change. You can't be one of those people that just clings to something that is simply not working, because that isn't going to serve you, and it's not going to serve if you do have children who are minor children living under the same roof of you and a spouse with whom you have a strained relationship. That doesn't serve them. That doesn't help them to feel good about their family life. And so sometimes you have to do what is in the best interests of everybody. And what crosses you is the Lover's card. And so this card, we know what it can mean, obviously, but it also can mean a choice. So maybe coming to a crossroads that you have to choose, and you're afraid to choose, unwilling to choose, and so on and so forth. If we look at the Lover's card, it can connect to the sign of Gemini. And so if that's the other person's sign, then that could be just giving you an extra message in favor of like calling it quits. But it can also be, this is the card of intimacy. So if you are single, for instance, and you are ready to kind of like have this, embark upon a serious relationship. And the 10 of Pentacles in that case can simply mean that you have done quite well for yourself. And so you've kind of gotten your career under control, or you've kind of started the ball rolling, and now you're ready for a personal relationship. And yet, there may be something in your past that has created trust issues, represented by the 10 of Swords. And so you may have a difficult time with intimacy. You may shy away from any kind of relationship that gets close. That might be the time when you kind of like pull back. And so that's something to work on if you have the desire to have that type of relationship in your life. Because, for instance, some people want to have a family. So if you're like a young adult and you have kind of spent years working to get your career going, and then you want to have a family, you may want that, but then you may fear what it takes to get there, because you don't want to get too close to somebody. Maybe work was the perfect excuse for not getting close. And finally, you have to kind of face your fears, because you know that something has to give. So it's very interesting. Even in a scenario where the person is married and they're unhappy in their relationship, they may have to face some uncomfortable truths about themselves. For instance, perhaps in some cases, the person is, they got involved out of, for ulterior motives, to kind of boost their lifestyle, because maybe they wanted children, but they didn't really care about getting close to the person that they were with. And it has come back to haunt them because that person was seeking affection from somebody else, and they wanted that kind of feeling. I don't condone infidelity whatsoever, but I also know that there are reasons why people do it, all kinds of reasons. And we have to listen to those reasons. We can't just, even if a person is the one being cheated on, it's important to listen to why the person says they cheat. Now, some people make excuses because they want to keep doing what they're doing, but some people are sincere. And in this particular scenario, it could be that you have had a difficulty being close to your partner. And that's something that you're going to have to deal with, regardless of whether you stay or whether you leave. Sometimes people have an unspoken agreement. I think of the relationships where like the trophy wife type of situation, where the woman is young, much younger, very beautiful, and the man is quite a bit older. And then what happens once they have been in that relationship? I think, okay. Sometimes I really don't know if that's a train or if that's like some kind of a, like some kind of a truck or something, because it's so it seems like it's so close to me. Sometimes in situations like that, you can have somebody who, when they get involved in that situation, they think that they can handle it, and then they realize that they're still missing out on love. That they place too much emphasis on the material, and they found out the hard way that it doesn't work like that. That it can only go so far. And like I say, I'm just trying to come up with different scenarios. I'm not saying that this is true for even the average Capricorn, but I just want to put it out there. So, very interesting. And it's coming in, or the advice, 9 of Pentacles. Standing on your own 2 feet materially. This can be such a purifying thing. If you have gotten, I don't blame, when I can't stand when I read online and they say, oh, she's a gold digger. I think that that's terrible, because what? It's a two-way street. Believe me, somebody isn't a gold digger who isn't giving that other person something in return. And so whatever they're giving in return, that means it's an even exchange. So if you have been involved with somebody, maybe you came from very humble beginnings and you met somebody, maybe they were quite a deal older than you, and you got involved with them. And you felt safe, or you felt like it was an improvement on your life circumstances. But then you grew up and you realized that you wanted more out of life. The Nine of Pentacles is saying, even if you have to live in a studio apartment, this could be the best thing that you ever do for yourself. If you are somebody who is married and you feel like you really contributed a lot to the marriage and that you deserve your cut from that person if you're going to get divorced, well, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. But if you have the mindset that you are independently wealthy, that you have your own money, that you don't need anything from anybody, then I think you will have a much better attitude to go into the future. Because we may get involved with people and situations when we're in a different frame of mind, we're in a different set of circumstances, and we grow and change. And then we're no longer like that anymore, and we no longer need that kind of thing in our lives. And to me, the best thing ever is being able to take it or leave it, if you will. If you're single and you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't, I'm afraid that I'm never going to find the right person, especially if you're someone like a woman who wants to have a child and you feel like, I only have like certain years. I can't just say it's unlimited. Men are different, but women definitely have an expiration date in that area, unless you adopt. The Nine of Pentacles is really, it could symbolize, if you are financially secure, there's no need for you to be working overtime and doing all these things that make you less available for not just meeting people, but nurturing that relationship. It's one thing to meet someone special and start dating, and then let's say you get married or you move in together and you are working overtime and things like that after you've already established a relationship. But if you're doing this, if you're working 60 hours a week and at the same time trying to even meet people and carry on a relationship, that to me is really asking too much of the situation. The outcome, very traditional card, the Hierophant. This is the card of marriage. This is also a card of the spiritual side, the religious side. So maybe having more of that attitude in your relationship. Perhaps you have been not living in a way that is true to your ethical standards in relationships. I didn't say this, but maybe there's something on your end with an affair, and that you have gotten involved with somebody thinking that it was going to lead to something permanent, and you are finding out that you got played, that you did something that maybe went against your principles in the hopes that it was going to lead to something permanent. And to me, the Hierophant ultimately stands for when you have a philosophical, moral framework in your life, then you rest in that. You don't have to wonder, you know right from wrong. And right from wrong isn't just like, oh, God is going to get me for this. It's about, I'm living in alignment with, it's almost like the golden rule, where it's like, if I do right by others, I'm going to have right done to me. Do we always have that happen? No. Sometimes it seems like unfair things happen. But I think in general, people sleep better at night when they are being above board and living in integrity. So that to me, also, like, if you're on the spiritual path, I think that you're more likely to find somebody who is a kindred spirit that way. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal love reading or any other type of reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.